limitations on when it comes to like constructed playable cards, because a lot of people and a lot of channels already cover the limited side of things. I think it would be more interesting to me to talk about um, the playability of these cards in constructed. Um, so let's go over some of them. Uh, there's quite a lot to be told here. So we have, um, firstly, we have to remember that these cards are gonna stay in standard for years. So like 5 years, I think. That's what we were told. Um, so on the perspective that these cards stay for 5 years, we have to look not only to what these cards can do immediately on standard, but what they can do going forward. What I mean by that is that some of these cards in foundations have not an home right now in standard, but they will surely find one in like 5 years. Because 5 years is a long, long time. Some cards just go up and down um, on that time frame, and if these cards stay for 5 years, they'll see a lot of rotations, and I think they have a lot of potential. So let me go over some of them. Let's start with the Planeswalkers. So, uh, first things first, I don't think this Chandra is playable at all. I think 7 mana is a hefty cost. Even the current Chandra that is on standard that costs 6 is amazing. It's super strong and doesn't it barely sees any play. So I would just uh, not try to look for these. Liliana Dreadhorde General at the cost that you have to pay to cast this card, it's kind of sketchy, but she's very, very powerful. She costs a little bit less than Chandra, and I think if you're playing like for a control build, this might be good. Because whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card. Up, she creates a zombie. I think the hub part is the least impactful part. I think it's the -4 that is really good. So you can just cast this and make your opponent sacrifice 2 creatures. And if you have creatures on the board, you are drawing cards with this. Because it's each player. So for each creature you sacrifice of your own, you're drawing a card. This ability is very powerful, but there has to be a deck that can utilize this fully. Which I don't see right now, but it has potential in the future. Then there's Vivian. Vivian has seen a bit of play, especially because there were, I think, some combos with her. Um, but Vivian is just pretty decent. I think it's for a mid-range build. It's a card that just keeps getting you card advantage, deals with a bunch of problems. Right now we are having a lot of enchantments playing in standard, and Vivian just gets rid of them, and that's a plus. But 5 mana for impacting the board in a minimal way, I she might see play because the green overlord ramps, so you can actually have a Vivian out on turn like 3, turn 4. And you also have elves coming in, we are gonna talk about that later. So she might see some play. Then there's Ajani and Kaito that cost 3. So these aggressively costed planeswalkers are the ones that I expect to see more play. Ajani, though, has been in standard before, uh, has never seen constructed play that I remember, because his ability is really lackluster. Um, but in a aggro deck might be useful, but I don't think so. I think Ajani is very fringe playable. Kaito, on the other hand, Kaito is so strong. I think this card is very, very pushed. Um, there's already a Kaito playing in standard right now, and uh, it's because it has an ninjutsu costing 3. But I think they play very well together, and that's something to keep in mind. I think this Kaito has surely potential to see play in standard. Then we have on the other mythics, Bloodthirsty Conqueror. Um, Bloodthirsty Conqueror is a card that I think will see play if there are cards that combo with this. Because you have cards that say that whenever um, your opponent. Uh, it's basically the opposite of what's written in here, that just combos with this. If one of those cards gets into standard, this card might see play. Otherwise, I think it's just a big chunky boy that doesn't do all that much. Um, then Valkyrie's Call. Uh, I mean, the card is very powerful, but it's like anti-board wipe shenanigans. It doesn't work with angels because it only returns non-angels. I'm not seeing this working right now on this environment. The card is relatively powerful, so it might see play in the future. Right now, I don't think so. Twin Flame Tyrant is okay. I don't think a dragon. If he had haste, he could see play right like what it's in here. I don't think so. I've been deliberately avoiding the Sphinx because I think the Sphinx is very, very strong. I'm gonna test this card uh, right when it comes out, I think. Because I'm very hyped for this. It's basically Snapcaster with wings. And yeah, I think this card's gonna be great, especially in Explorer and Pioneer. I'm gonna test a couple of decks with this, if you wanna stay tuned in. I have some deck lists lined up. Quilled Great Worm. I think this card is insane. So in a color that you usually run ramp on, and because it works very well with the counters mechanic, and because it can come back from the graveyard, because usually the issue with counters decks is that they don't have a way of coming from behind, and if you can just recast this from the graveyard, seems insane. However, the issue is that coming back from behind is usually coming back from no board state. And if there was a creature that would just enter the battlefield with a bunch of counters that you could use for this card would be a lot better. Right now I don't see this working, but in a couple of sets there might be a shell um, of a green white counters deck that can utilize this in some way. Uh, Rise of the Dark Realms is not a card I think it's gonna see play. It's more of a card for like fun formats. Omniscience, on the other hand, is probably gonna enable weird combos with Atraxa, cause you have Enact the Crime that can cast Omniscience from the graveyard. You have a couple other cards that interact with it, and you can cheat Omniscience into the battlefield for like 4 mana, which is kinda scary. Um, yeah, Omniscience is gonna impact standard for the whole duration it is in it. I think that putting Omniscience on foundations is honestly quite scary. Then we have Herald of Eternal Dawn, a new card, a 7 mana 6/6 flash flying angel that doesn't let you lose the game. As of right now, I don't see a way for this card to shine, but there might be a place for it. Um, Moving on, we have Height of the Dragon Caller. This is basically this could I could see this playing like some sort of alternative win con for um, blue red prowess deck, sort of. But it's just so much mana that they usually don't reach these levels of mana. But it can also play in some control deck that runs red. But there haven't been many control decks that play red. Maybe Borders Enchantments wants this. If their instants at some point create 5/5 dragons, they are cool with that. Yeah, I think this card is pretty cool. Might see some play. Doubling Season, it's an amazing card. It plays a lot of commander. It's worth a lot of money. So it's a very good reprint to be on a standard played set. However, I'm not sure that Doubling Season is gonna be seeing a lot of play in standard unless there's some kind of broken combo with tokens with it. But well, it is what it is. Get your hands on the Doubling Season for your fun decks at least. Loot seems like really good. This new loot. Playing an additional land each turn has always been incredible. I think loot might see a lot of play. Dracoseth, Moth of Flames, on the other hand, seems like uh, eh, pretty card. I'm not seeing a lot of play unless you have a card that can cheat dragons into the battlefield somehow. Abyssal Harvester seems like an amazing card for standard right now, because Annex is making waves, and this is a demon that costs 3 that can reanimate stuff. I think this card is insane for standard right now. I cannot overstate how good this card is. Um, yeah, Abyssal Harvester is a card that I would keep my eyes on and try to get my hands on some. Drake I'm not high on this card. I think that we had that Otter, Mythic Otter on Bloomborough that was similar in stats and didn't make much waves. Maybe this gives consistency to the deck that is playing Enduring Vitality and trying to combo off with prowess triggers. But I'm not very excited about it. Um, but this might find an home for it. Um, this Sky Knight Squire might be cool. It's probably good on Convoke decks and that sort of strategy that is trying to play a bunch of creatures really quickly. Because it's like if you just crack an artifact to create the 3 golems, this just gets 3 counters and gains flying. Seems pretty ridiculous on that deck. Um, However, the deck in which this plays has not been. It's falling off a bit on standard, so. And I'm not sure this is the card they need to be pushed up top, but we'll see. Authority of Consuls, when was in standard back in the day, used to be a very powerful sideboard card, and it's probably gonna be a powerful sideboard card for the enchantment decks that are playing right now. Kiora the Rising Tide seems like a very decent card. The ability of drawing 2 cards and discarding 2 cards is good. The Threshold thing, um, I mean, it's pretty hard to pull off, but if you do, just pooping that 8/8, it's probably gonna be good enough to uh, bash in some games. I'm not sure in which type of deck Kiora would fit in, but I would say that if Kiora was to find a home right now in standard, would probably would probably be blue-white control decks that play with Caretaker's Talent. Because they usually grind the game, they take a long time to win, they fill the graveyard a lot. And this is the type of card that can filter their hand, take advantage of dragging the game and then creating an 8/8 that you can like copy with caretaker style. Well, you can't copy it because it's legendary, but well, you just putting this 8/8 on the battlefield and doing shenanigans with it is ridiculous. Um, Rune's card Demon is a card that might see play. I mean, I think it is a bit overcosted. It has seen play when it was in standard back in the day on decks that like sacrificed creatures to go get like pod decks, birthing decks that could sacrifice a 6 drop to go get this and then tutor something. Um, right now there's Annex decks that could find a home for this just because he is a demon and can tutor you other cards. But the 7 mana cost, it's it's so much. I'm not sure this could play. I I'm doubting this card, but hey, it might find an home. There are ways in which you can abuse this card with flickers and other things, because it's an enter the battlefield ability that is very powerful. I'm not understating how powerful this ability is, but it's the 7 mana cost. If you can cheat this to the board somehow, the card is gonna see play. If you can't, I mean, it's just right in that slot that is almost there. Flameweak Phoenix is an amazing card, saw a lot of standard play back in the day. All you have to do to bring it back from the graveyard is having a 4 powered creature. So these would usually play on graveyard decks. There is like Cruel Claw right now in standard that could use this Phoenix to be discarded to cast more powerful stuff that then enables it to just come back for 1 mana. I mean, the Phoenix is really good. Um, it's probably gonna find a home in graveyard shenanigan decks. It's just a matter of time. I think this is the kind of card that it's just a matter of time until it finds a home. Sylvan Scavenging. I think this is a pretty powerful card. I'm just not sure this is where you wanna spend your mana. Uh, the ability to create. The thing is, if you could create a raccoon when you have no board, this card would be insane. Because you could come back from getting Wrath, uh, having your board Wrathed away. Right now is just putting a counter, and if you don't have a board, it's not doing anything. It's kind of eh. So moving on, we have Brass's Bounty, doesn't do much, at least it never did while it was in standard, and I don't see a home for it right now. Genesis Wave is a card that has been very, very, very powerful. I can't overstate how much play this card has seen, and then there are a bunch of elves that generate a bunch of mana on this set, so I would beware of this card. I think that if elves are good, this card's gonna be insane. Um, cause and even if you can just like domain decks can ramp and get to the point in which this card starts to be broken, like seeing the top 7 and just putting all 7 or less costed cards into the battlefield is just huge. I think I need to scroll sideways because there's Blasphemous Edict here. I'ma be real. I don't think Blasphemous Edict is gonna be all that good in standard just because having 13 creatures on the battlefield is very difficult on a 2 player match. However, and I think that for right now, the Wrath, the Black Wrath from Murders is a lot better than this one in standard. However, I think this card is gonna be amazing in Commander. I think you should pick one up. I think it's gonna be worth quite a bit of money because of that, because Commander is very popular. And black in Commander is very popular, and this type of effect costing 1 is very sought after. So yeah, I think this card is going to see a ton of play, even if it's not for Standard or Pioneer. Um, Raise the Past is a card that's probably going to be pretty decent. I think Raise the Past is a cool sideboard card for UW Hiri that is playing Standard right now. I think it basically reanimates all the 2 drops that usually get killed by random stuff. And reanimating them all at the same time is pretty good. Um, so it's a good sideboard card for those decks. Extravagant Replication. Let me remember this card again. Okay, this is pretty good. It's a shame that costs 6. I think it's a little bit on the expensive side. Might see play, I'm not saying it's not, but it's a bit too much. Um, then again, we have Curator of Destinies. I like this card a lot. I like the effect that it does when it enters the battlefield. I like the fact that it can't be countered. I just think that it is not a game ender, which is usually what you want by this cost on this type of decks. But it might see a bit of play. It depends on how fast or slow the format is at a given time. So I'm not saying this is not gonna find a home in the future, but it's very tough that this card competes with the other cards that cost this much in the format. Celestial Armor seems like an insane card. It's probably gonna see a ton of play. It just depends on the meta, and well, I think this effect is very strong. Basically, it saves your creature from removal because it has flush. It gives it X-proof and indestructible, and then it gives it +2/+0 and flying, which is a bunch of stats. This card is gonna be very strong. Just a matter of finding a home. Then we have High Society Hunter, which is a 5/3 Vampire Noble for 5. With flying, whenever this creature attacks, you may sacrifice another creature and put a +1/+1 counter on it. And whenever another non-token creature dies, you draw a card. I think this card has potential to see play. It's well costed. The ability is very strong. It's just that I don't see a home for it right now in Standard. But and I don't think it is Pioneer playable. Costing 5, it's competing with stuff like Igra that just wins the game on the spot. But yeah, there's that. Krenko might see play, depends on how many goblins they just shove into Standard. I don't think there are that many right now, but just be aware of it in the future. Preposterous Proportions is a fun card. I don't think it's gonna see a bunch of play, so I'm just gonna overlook it. Kellen, it's looking like a pretty good card. So there's mono red aggro playing right now in the format, and it is reeks of mono red aggro. Spinner of Souls. This little spider that costs 3, it's a 4/3 reach. It's very aggressively costed for the body, and then it has a super powerful ability. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may reveal the top cards of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of the battlefield. The bottom of the library in any order. Um, so there have been a couple of effects like these on enchantments and stuff, but this is a 4/3 reach for 3 with this ability. This is a bit stick that basically gives you insurance against removal unless they kill this one first. I think this card is very powerful and has room to be even better. Um yeah, I think this is gonna see play in some deck at some point. It's just a matter of time. Um it's also a card that is 4 power don't you forget we had Flame Wake Phoenix right over here that requires a creature with 4 power. These two cards smell like cans, because cans was the set of 4 power matters, and cans is gonna be the second set next year. So I would look after this card, because Spinner of Souls seems like a card that is gonna be real good if 4 power is a thing that matters. Tiny Bone seems like a cool card for this card decks. I don't think they are very good in standard right now. I think this might be a fun card for Pioneer and Explorer. I don't know, might need some testing. Um, I Fey Trickster, Flash Flying, you may cast spells as they add Flash. Um, my feelings towards this kind of effects, which is cards that give other cards Flash. They are usually not very good, just because if you have to build your deck around having this effect and it's on a 4-2, it's very, 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 very fragile. So you cannot count on having this ability, and if you cannot count on it, then building your deck to have flush and then not have it, it's kind of a bummer. But hey, might find a home. But I'm I'm gonna doubt it. Giada, Fond of Hope. Well, this card sees a lot of play in Explorer on Angel decks. There's a lot of Angels on this set. There might be more Angels in Standard in the future, so this is one of the cards that I would be wary that could change Standard drastically. So Giada is a 2 mana 2/2 with flying and vigilance that can tap to add white to cast angels, and then has an ability that reads each other angel you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each angel you already control. This scales up so fast, it's ridiculous. And right below it we have another angel, Exemplar of Light. 4 mana 3/3 flying. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 on this creature. Whenever you put one or more +1/+1 counters on this creature, draw a card. Well, this is pretty decent. I'm just not sure there's a deck for this right now. However, I would be looking into this card since it's an angel and kinda works very well with Giada. So if you play Giada on turn 2 and then play Exemplar of Light on turn 3, it is going to enter the battlefield with a counter because of Giada's ability, and you get to draw a card right away. So this kind of interaction seems real strong. Just a matter to see how it works out. Lunar Insight. It's a 3 mana, draw a card for each different mana value among non-land permanents you control. This type of cards is so hard to evaluate because they have a very high ceiling and a very crappy floor. However, because this works for non-land permanents, there are some decks that always have enchantments lying around, and like Domain right now is playing with a bunch of overlords that all cost different mana costs and are difficult to interact with, and this is a card that could shine in a deck like that. Painful Quandary, it's not a card that I think it's good. I'm just gonna go over it, otherwise I'm not getting out of here today. Electro Duplicate is a fine card, I don't think it's all that good either. Unless there are some shenanigans that you can do with this. Um, Galta. Galta is a card that might see play. I mean, it just depends on how green aggro can go from here. So when green aggro is good, Galta is good. It will always play in green aggro decks. The problem right now is that I don't see a card advantage engine for green decks. If they get one, this card is gonna be amazing. But if you can go like turn one elf, turn two this spider, turn like I don't know, but you have already 5 power on the board, and then you play Galta. I mean that's a tough curve. Um, Scavenging Ooze has always been a very good card. It's main deckable, but it's also a very good sideboard card against shenanigans with the graveyard. It's my only hope against Omniscience combos. I hope that Scavenging Ooze kinda puts an hold on it. Slag Storm, it's okay. It deals 3 to each creature or 3 to each player. It's a fine card. Um, it's not very different than like Anger of the Gods, except it doesn't exile. But it's an okay card. It will see play whenever it's needed. It won't see play whenever it's not. There are very variants of these right now in standard, so it's not a must. Zura, sure. Lich Lord. I think this card is insane. It's a 2 mana 2/2 zombie warlock, which means it's also an outlaw. And it has ward pay to life. So to interact with it, you always have to pay to life. And then taps to cast target zombie creature in your graveyard this turn. So zombies have always had graveyard shenanigans, but this is one of the cheapest zombie lords that can interact with the graveyard. I think this is so cool. I don't think there are many zombies right now in standard that can like take um, advantage of this, but this is one of those cards that is gonna stay in standard for so long, it's probably gonna find a home at a point. Um, Next, Homunculus Zord. Um, I don't want to imagine a world in which this card is good, because if this card is good, when this card is good, it's gonna be bananas. But I think this is more of a limited nightmare than a constructed playable card. Um, Arabo, the first Fang. Other card, other cats you control gain +1/+1. Whenever Arabo or another non-token cat enters, create a 1/1 white cat creature token. Yeah, I think this card is very solid. If cat tribal becomes a thing, this is probably gonna see play. There are, I think Regal Caracol is also on this set, so we might have some cat tribal shenanigan things that might be here for future reference. I think right now there's a lot going around to actually make use of that. Etali is very expensive for what it does. It's not seen play in standard that it was playable in. I don't think it's gonna see standard play now. This Hydra is interesting, but I'm not sure it's gonna see play. If the counters decks are cool, this Hydra is probably gonna be cool. Because there are a couple of other cards on this spoiler that are cool with uh, counters creatures. Um, then we have Phyrexian Arena. It's a cool inclusion on Standard. I think right now Standard is having a better Phyrexian Arena on Anoli Henex, but beware, Anoli Henex is gonna rotate in 2 years. Phyrexian Arena is not. Archmage of Runes. This is a pretty cool card. I really like this card. I think it's super powerful. It's just that 5 mana is so much, but if you can cast this and protect it, I think this combo of abilities is just so strong. Reducing the cost of instants and sorceries and having, whenever you cast one of them, draw a card, it's amazing. I would keep an eye for this card. Crystal Barricade, 2 mana 0/4. It's a defender, has X-proof, and prevents all non-combat damage that would be dealt to other creatures you control. I think this card is really cool. It's very cool against red decks, especially because it gives you X-proof and your creatures. It prevents the damage that they receive from non-combat sources. Even though red decks are playing basically Monstrous Rage and turn. Well, but it's good against burn in general. Um, might see a bit of play in control decks whenever X-proof is relevant and preventing non-combat damage is relevant. Day of Judgment, it's probably gonna see play. It's the cheapest Wrath with no drawback that we have in standard in white. Even though we have Sunfall that exiles, I still think that costing one cheaper it's gonna probably play in favor of Day of Judgment. But we'll have to see. Time Stop, it's a cool card. I'm not seeing this thing play in standard, but who knows. Nightlife's familiar. It's cool for sacrifice decks, even though I think the card is a bit slow. I'm not gonna say it's not gonna see play, but if it finds a home, it will be good there. And that home has to be a sacrifice deck. Seer Slicer Goblin, it creates goblins if you attacked. I mean, this just screams of Krenku material. So does Brazen. No, Brazen Scourge is Gremlins, I think. Yeah, it's a Gremlin. So, yeah. No, they don't interact. But yeah, this screams of Krenko material, and it's not doing much else right now. So then we have Elvish Archdruid. Archdruid is an amazing elf. It gives you a lot of mana when you're playing tribal elves. This card scares me together with Genesis Wave. I hope that this doesn't become a deck because it's gonna be scary. Moving on. Keep an eye for Elvish Archdruid and all other elves that are in the spell. Did I skip any? No. There are a lot of other elves that are down here. So Reclamation Sage is a good reprint. Keep an eye on it. Let me see other things. Garruk's Uprising was in Eldraine but not in Standard, and now it's back in Standard, and I think this card is pretty good. Boltwave is new, and it's amazing, and it's scary. Keep an eye for it. What does this do? When this creature dies, if it... Oh. This card, Infernal Vessel. I'm not sure how I feel about this, but given that an Holy Helix is a thing, this might be a thing, but I think it's a bit too on the slower side to actually see play. Mischievous Pup, I'm not sure this is gonna see play. Maybe Flash and Blinking are things that you wanna do. I mean, it can save a creature from removal. It's a 3/1, but doesn't have evasion. It's kind of weird. Brineborn Cutthroat, on the other hand, it just grows. It's like the core of Flash decks. If Flash is a thing, Brineborn Cutthroat is gonna be an insane card. It was amazing when it was in Standard, and it has the potential to be amazing at some point. So Resolute Reinforcement is another card that was in, I think it was Capenna, or is it still in Standard? I don't remember, but it's now on Standard for the next 5 years, and Convoke Enjoyers are gonna love this. Then we have, let me scroll down, we have Spectral Sailor that sees a ton of play in Pioneer and Explorer, and it's probably gonna see a bit of play in Standard. It's a flash creature that does stuff, and it has evasion. It's probably gonna be better than like Siren for Kaitu deck. I'm not sure. Or maybe you're just gonna play a couple of these to be your like 5th and 6th Siren. Then we have Vampire Nighthawk, which has always been an amazing card. It's a bit power crept right now. Out of it used to be an amazing control card because it's just a creature that is very annoying to deal with. It has flying, death touch, and lifelink. It's nasty. It's probably gonna be nasty against red decks. Yeah, and there's that. What else? Essence Scatter is now in standard for 5 years. Just through. I think this card is new. I don't remember this card. And it deals 3 to a creature and you gain 1 life. I think this card is very, very good. Um, Now we have just a caveat. We have Elspeth Smite, and Elspeth Smite exiles the creature. So while Elspeth Smite exists, I'm not sure this is gonna see play, but Elspeth Smite is gonna rotate pretty soon, so keep an eye for that. It's gonna be a cool alternative card. Diagraph Ghoul also seen play back when zombie decks were a thing. There are a couple of zombies in this set, so if zombies become a thing, Diagraph, Diagraph Ghoul is gonna see play. Twin Blade Blessing is also pretty decent. It has flash, it gives double strike. There's an Auras deck playing in standard right now. This seems pretty decent in that deck. Reclamation Sage I've already talked about. It's an amazing card. There's a lot of enchantments and artifacts playing in standard right now, so Reclamation Sage is gonna be an MVP. Youthful Valkyrie with Giada on the same set. Guys, beware of the Angels deck. It's probably gonna see some play. Um, Iadrize is just an amazing control card. It saw a bunch of play in standard. It's probably gonna be good. Abrade is gonna be good. Snakeskin Veil too. Um, Arbiter of Woe is kind of a mixed feelings card because it's a lot of mana. It's a fun card. I don't think it's quite pushed enough to be standard playable. I wanted so bad for this to be standard playable. Um, this is a cool health, but not much to be said. There are better things and more aggressively costed things than this. Um, this creature, however, it seems pretty scary. It's a 2 mana for 2 that doesn't unstep but can unstep. Can doesn't untap but can untap if you killed another creature. Or if a creature died. I don't. Yeah, it can be yours or your opponent's, so. It's pretty big for a red creature. And there's Monstrous Rage on the format, so this is kinda scary. But there might be better things than this right now, and I don't know if this is gonna see play, but well, it's a card to be aware of. Cat Collector. I don't remember this card on the spoiler. Whenever you gain life for the first time, create a 1/1 white cat. Okay. Seems good. Yeah, just that. Good. Um, an offer you can't refuse is a very powerful card. Whenever combos and stuff like that you really, really, really have to counter have a room, an offer you can't refuse is usually your go-to counter for those situations. So it's a cool card to keep in mind. It's a cool collectible to have in Commander. Just beware of this card. Um, 6 mana, 1/1. Okay, creates 2/3 knights. Meh. Don't think it's good enough. Stroke of Midnight is in standard for the foreseeable time. Tragic Banshee is a decent card. There was a card similar to this one that played in pod decks. So if there are effects like pod, these might see play. Because it's just removal on a stick. And it's a 5/3, so it's a good bitter. Wildwood Scourge, what is this? Yeah, I don't think this card is quite pushed enough to standard, but Inspiring Call on the other hand, if there is a counters deck, Inspiring Call is gonna be a pain to deal with. So it's a 3 mana instant that says draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. Man, this card is scary. Because it fills your hand and protects your creatures. that's a good reason to play Sunfall if those decks become powerful enough. Zombify is a cool card. There are a couple of reanimating decks going around right now with Valgavoth and stuff, and Atraxa. So Zombify is a card to beware. Um, Prison in the Moon, it's a cool card for Commander mostly. Mischievous Mystic is actually a card that is very interesting because it's whenever you draw your second card each turn, you create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. So creating a fairy with flying is very powerful. I cannot understate how powerful that is. The thing is, I don't think there are a lot of decks that want to have these effects right now. But like fairy tribal could be a thing. There's spells tutor, there are support to fairies in Eldraine, the Eldraine set. I don't know if this card could push fairies into being a thing, or if in future sets we are gonna have more fairies that want to take advantage of this. But like spells tutor just scales so well with this card. I would keep an eye on this. Claws out, it's cool if you're playing cats, otherwise it sucks. Seismic Rupture, it's okay-ish. Let me see other cards. I'm just gonna search for them right now. Angel of Finality is a cool sideboard card. Um, Vengeful Blood Witch, it's okay. I first time I read it, it seemed like to me like a blood artist, but it's not quite. Um, yeah, Hero's Downfall, it's a cool card. I think it's a bit power crept right now. It used to be insane rare back when it was printed. Um, it might see play, but I don't think that the Planeswalker killing ability part of it, it's now very relevant. There are other ways to deal with it. Burst Lightning is most likely gonna see a bit of play. Shock is seeing play, so this is just better shock, better than shock. Bushwhack sometimes sees play. It's a fight, a cool fight spell. There's this angel that says whenever another creature you control enters, gain a life. I don't want to say that this is good, but Giada is a thing, and the other angel that says that whenever you gain life, it gains a counter and you draw a card is a thing. So just keep an eye on this. Don't sleep on these kind of cards that seem. Those are commons that seem like don't have play and then pop out somewhere, and you are like, oh damn. Firebrand Archer is also another card like that. It's a bomb. It was a bomb in Pauper for a long time. This ability is very strong. Don't sleep on it. Dwyann's Elite. If elves are good, this card is good. Enough said. Um, just looking for other stuff. Witness Protection is sometimes a sideboard card. It was in Capenna. It used to see quite a bit of play. Um, just looking through. Tolarian Terror is here, and so is Qatar Commando. Both these cards are seeing play right now in Standard, so just keep your mind that it exists. Llanowar Elves is here, it's gonna see a lot of play. People always try to ramp up stuff. Then there are cats here that might see play if cats are good. Stab, it's basically disfigured 2.0. Um, Thrill of Possibilities is already so power crept, I don't think it's gonna see any play. Then down into this section, Progenitor. Well, um, I don't see a way of this card seeing play right now. It used to see play in decks that can cheat it into the board. I don't think there's a way in Standard to cheat this because of this. I mean, there's a deck that if you're playing Enact the Crime, you can respond to this trigger and maybe cast Progenitor, but it's tough. Muldrota, I'm not sure about it. It sees a bit of commander play, but other than that, I'm not sure about it. Zimon and this ability seem quite powerful if counter decks are a thing. I mean, decks that care about counters. But I'm not sure by the cost and the power toughness that she's sizable enough to be on her own. I mean, you can just put a counter on herself, but meh. Niv Mizzet. There's probably a way to play this Niv. People always find ways to play Niv. Um, but I'm not seeing it. Elenda, though, on the other hand, I think Elenda is very powerful. Lifelink, Hexproof from instant, so most removal in playing right now is instant, so you can get around it. The ones that aren't instant are like that enchantment for Duskmourn that gives -3/-3, which also doesn't kill Elenda. Uh, Maybe only Ossification gets Elenda. And then she says, as long as your life total is greater than your starting life total, she has +1/+1 and menace. Elenda gets +5/+5 as long as you have at least 10 greater than your starting life total. Yeah, I'd keep an eye on this card. It seems really powerful. If there's a life gaining shenanigans deck, it's gonna be good. Latril Blade of Elves, if elves are good, Latril is good. Not much to be said there. Alesha is a new card and it's insane. I think this card is gonna see tons of play. Coma is also gonna see tons of play. I think the card is bananas. It can't be countered. It has trample. It is so big, and it has ward 4, so it's gonna be very painful to deal with this. Key card seems okay. I'm not sure you can actually use these abilities. There might pop up a deck in which this is good, but I don't see it right now. Thousand Year Storm, I'm not sure about it. It's more of a fun card than a playable thing. Anthem of Champions, I also don't see it. Swiftblade Vindicator is usually decent when borders decks are also decent. So I would keep an eye on this card, even though it's not a very sizable body. There are ways to grow it for sure, like Monstrous Rage. Um, yeah, this card is to keep an eye on. Um, oh, um, nah. Ashroot Animist is actually, in my opinion, outside of the colors in which it should be, because it's a lizard, should be in black, so you could actually play it with other lizards, not wizards, lizards. And then this ability seems kind of weird. Um, it requires you to attack with it. Eh. Consuming Aberration is okay. I don't think it's gonna see a lot of play. Tatyova might see a room. Yeah. If Flute is played alongside Tatyova, it's actually gonna be a pretty cool thing to see. Balmor, it's kinda scary for uh, blue-red prowess decks. Yeah, I think Balmor is scary here. There was an otter deck that had a lot of things that, and it's also a bird. There are also things that play with birds. Ah man, Balmor is seems like a very pushed card for constructed here. Um, Perforating Artist. I also love this card. I think it's very good. It's a 3/2 Death Toucher that at the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, each opponent loses 3 life unless they sacrifice a permanent or discard a card. Yeah, I think this card is insane. Um, this is gonna see play in red aggro decks probably. Um, Fiendish Panda. Whenever you gain life, you put a counter on it. When this creature dies, eh, seems alright. Okay. This ability do when this creature dies with another target non-bear creature card with mana values less or equal to the battlefield is relevant. Is also a demon, which might be relevant. Yeah, this card is alright. The thing is gaining life. It's not very easy on those decks, but who knows. A Nightmare Bird. 3 mana 2/2. Whenever this creature enters or attacks, draw a card and discard a card. Threshold, this creature gets +1/+1 and has Death Touch as long they're okay. This card is alright. Might see a bit of play if you care about drawing discarding, especially the discarding part of it. But it's a bird. Probably if it was a rat, could could be a little bit cooler. Sire of 7 Deaths. I mean, this card is insane. It's probably gonna find a home somewhere. People are gonna try and build decks with it for sure, even if it's bad. Um, Card is certainly pushed. Banner of Kinship is probably gonna see play in some decks because it retains the buff even if your creatures die. Solemn Simulacrum has always found homes somewhere in the meta, so I expect it to find a home at some point in Standard. Heraldic Banner also should be pretty decent somewhere. Yeah, most of these cards gonna see play in Standard at some point. And that's why I'm so happy with this set. Yeah, I think the land cycle is just makes zero sense on my opinion though. Tap lands that gain life and then you have Maze's End. Or Maze's End is not in the set. Okay, it's not in the set. It's probably on Jumpstart then. I thought I'd seen a spoiler of Maze's End. Okay, it's not here. Secluded Courtyard is gonna. It's cool that it's gonna stay in standard. Um, the other lands are just okay. I think Soulstone Sanctuary might see a bit of play, but not crazy. I think the most relevant part is that it doesn't go back to just being a land. It stays a creature, and that's cool. It's cool that it is all creature types, so you can activate it to be a demon or something like that, like you do with Mutavault in Pioneer. Yeah, I think this card is pretty cool. Yeah, and that rounds up my views on the set. I'm gonna open a lot of this set. I think there's a lot of potential for these to be insane. Most of these cards are gonna see play at a point or another. It's a set that's gonna stay in standard for so many years that I think it's good enough for me to open a couple of packs and see how it goes. There are cards here that I want regardless of playing in standard or not. So yeah, gonna look for them. But mostly I want this Abyssal Harvester. Seems real cool and powerful. And I want this Sphinx of Forgotten Lore and Kaito. Those two cards seem insane. Yeah. I think Sphinx of Forgotten Lore is gonna see play in Pioneer Explorer actually. Because you can attack and like thought seize your opponent or something. Seems real good. Or push mid combat. Use a push that you have on your graveyard. Yeah. I'm gonna try and build like a Dimir flush deck with this card. I'm gonna have a bit of fun with it. And I'll probably do a video on it. So you guys can also have fun. Well guys, that's all for today. I'm gonna try to record another Dimir video. Maybe the Dimir. Nah, it doesn't make sense because Foundations is coming out. So hopefully you're gonna enjoy the Javier deck tech plus gameplay and this Foundations preview video. I'm not sure when I'm gonna put this up. Maybe today and Javier deck tomorrow or in 2 days, something like that. If you like these kind of videos, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment. Tell me what you think about this set. And see you guys on the next one. Bye.